Hey, this is Adam Green, the director of Hatchet, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.
All right, and welcome to the Station of Decapitation Without Your Head. I'm Nasty Neil.
That would make me Terrible Troy.
And we were joined by, I was going to say local, but I guess that would depend where you're listening. Boston filmmaker Mathew Fisher here from Boombastic Films.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I met you several times at different, on like a movie set, I think at Coolidge Theater, and maybe things before I even knew who you were.
Hey, you never know the people until you meet them.
True.
Very true. Very true. So I say Boombastic Films. When did Boombastic Films start, and is there any reason for the name?
No, Boombastic Films started like in the early 2000s, roughly like 2003, 2004. A group of friends, we just, decided that through the trauma way of thinking, that we could make our own films. We were kind of tired of what we were seeing and being released in theaters and such. So we said, you know what, why don't we just make our own? And as far as Boombastic goes, it was just a fun name that stuck, you know what I mean? It's some people think that it came from the Shaggy song.
Right.
We knew about the Shaggy song, of course, but it's more of like a reference to Rodney Dangerfield with the Dr. Vinnie Boombats, of which I'm a big fan of, yeah.
So what is your background when you guys all get together, a group of friends to start making movies? Did you have any background in filmmaking, or is it something you've kind of learned while making movies?
Yeah, I just kind of learned. I never went to film school. When I decided like that making films is something that I wanted to do, I kind of reached out. That was the age of like the MySpace and stuff where, the filmmakers that you can appreciate are more, accessible. And I hit up a lot of them, and I asked them what do you think the better thing to do is, and they said I heard the majority of them just said, if you're going to go to film school, take the money that you would spend on film school and make your first film, and that hands-on experience, you'll learn everything you need to know, because when you're starting out, you're wearing a lot of hats, so you're not just specializing, in one certain thing. You got to play almost every role to a degree on set. So it's better. And I feel it's better to do that anyways. Like when people ask me what they should do, I usually say, just try and get on a set and work your way around and learn a little bit of everything. And, start with your friend, start making small short films with your friends on the weekend and see what it takes to direct the person. 'Cause it's, when you're first getting into it, you got like cold feet a little bit where you're telling somebody what to do and stuff, and they got to trust you. And there's a whole element that you got to learn to like deal with people and to deal with equipment and stuff like that. So I think your best bet is just to kind of gather, for like what we did on the weekends, and write something, shoot it, edit it, put music to it, see how it looks, see what mistakes you made doing it. And then the next time, fix those mistakes,
That was a big theme of B Documentary 2, it seemed. Most of the people involved had that same advice, was, like if someone asked how to make your movie, everyone just basically said, go make it. Except for Joe Bob Briggs. He said the opposite. He said go to film school and learn something specific.
Which nothing but respect for Joe Bob, and he's right. So my take on film school is like, film school's good more for the connections you make there, and you get you're around more like-minded people that want to make films, so that side of it's good. But like with the internet age and Facebook and all that, you can reach out and find communities of people that want to make films as well. So just tap into that, But I mean, if you got the money to do it, then it ain't gonna hurt. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. And I love Joe Bob too, but I also do think he's coming from a different era where
he is. Yeah.
It's a lot different from today. And I don't think you could ever understand it unless you were really in, like a young guy around, this era.
Yeah. He comes from an era of film, and, nowadays nobody really shoots on, even Hollywood films aren't really shot on film anymore. And if you were to have to go through all the motions of, you know, printing up the film and cutting it manually and stuff, I think a lot less people would be able to follow through. You know what I mean? It'd be so much more difficult than the digital age. So I think in that he's probably coming from that sense of it.
Yeah. Have you ever worked with actual film? Because I talked to a lot of independent movie makers, and a lot of them, not a lot, but I've talked to several who always tell me that the story, like, oh, well, I really want to make a movie on film. And from my understanding, it's probably a really bad idea because it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's not, like you said, you could edit much easier on digital.
Yeah, it's got to be handled appropriately too, or you could blow all the footage you got, you know. And I've never personally shot on film. I think every filmmaker of the new age has a dream and it would love to work on film. I mean, I have a 16 millimeter camera that I got my hands on, but I haven't shot anything with it. But yeah, it's definitely a lot easier the digital route where you just shoot it, put it on your laptop or whatever, and cut it up instead of shooting it and then sending it out to get, you know, printed up and then get it back. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, if you read like a lot of books and stuff from back in the day, you'd always hear about weird situations where like somebody mishandled the film print and then they just lost all that footage and stuff. So it's interesting, you know, there's always going to be headaches and hassles with making film or anything really. And I think we're luckier to have this digital age where we don't got to worry. I mean, it's hard enough, you know what I mean? You don't got to worry about like, once you get it there, like losing it, which you can still lose it on a hard drive or something. But yeah, the film aspect, I think if people were still shooting on film, there would be like a lot less filmmakers out there making films, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually just finished Groundhog before the interview, which I know I probably should watch it earlier, but it was cool because it's fresh in my mind. And I hate to say it's pleasantly surprised because that's like, maybe I wasn't expecting it to be good, but I really dug it. It was, it's very funny. It's got great lines, a lot of cool homages to horror movies, and it was just really a good fun movie.
Yeah, that was written by Dave McNonough. He's another filmmaker under Boombastic Films. That's another thing I tell people when they go to make their first film. You know, a lot of people fresh out the gate go attempt to make like some dramatic film or some epic, like make Forrest Gump or something, and it's like, just make something that if there's mistakes in the film, which there will be, it doesn't destroy the whole film for the audience. You know what I mean? Right. And Dave's got a good style. I think he's got his finger on the pulse of there's a certain type of comedy that he does, and he's a big horror fan. So all the horror, the gore was there in the comedy. I'm proud of that film. There's possible a sequel coming. It's been getting a lot of good reviews lately, which is nice. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, honestly, not this year because I really dug it. I thought it was very fun, and David's going to be on next week to talk more about the movie. So, how did you get in touch with? How did you and David start working together?
Me and Dave met each other in like 2014, I think it was. He was through Facebook. He was a dude that was kind of following the films, and I was getting ready to shoot a short film called Insomniac. And he hit me up, and we were looking for investors at the time. So I told him, hey, you could, invest some money into it. And then usually what I'll do is you can either invest the money and just stay home and that's that, or you could invest the money and you can come on set and you can learn the different ropes of, of filmmaking and such. And he decided to come on, and he was learning stuff, and he had a script for Groundhog that he already wrote. That after Insomniac we started getting into, and he did a couple more drafts on it, and we eventually shot that in 2016, I think. I think, yeah, maybe 17. February, I remember that. But yeah, I met him through Facebook and just kind of a mutual love for film, and we both wanted to make films, and we're big film fans, so we got a lot to talk about, and that's kind of how we linked up.
Yeah. So how is that? Where is that available? Is it available?
What? Groundhog or Insomniac?
Yeah, Groundhog. We'll talk about Insomniac in a minute.
We'll go. It's, all of our films that are out. Right now we got DJ Stand the Man out, and we got Groundhog out. Insomniac's coming later in the year. If you go to our Facebook page, Boombastic Films, BOOMBASTIC STIC Films. Contact us, and we can get you through PayPal, or if you're local, we can get it there. We try and do a lot of screenings and type of, get-togethers throughout the conventions and stuff where we have booths and like people can get the merch like directly. But yeah, you can PayPal through us if you're out of state, and there's even an eBay thing, and they try and make it as accessible as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Insomniac's later in the year, and Groundhog is on the street now.
Yeah, I recommend it to people. It's a lot of fun. I dig it, and it was cool seeing James Balsamo in it. And I heard his voice in Insomniac. So
yeah,
how'd you get in touch with James Balsamo? Because I don't think he's from around here. I think he's in L.A.
No. Yeah, he was, when I first met Jimmy, he was in New York, and I met him at Rock and Shock, which is our big like horror convention in Massachusetts, coming up a month. Yeah, I just met him because he's a hustler, man. He's always pushing his films. He's like one of the hardest working dudes in like the independent world. And, just met him, and he gave us some DVDs, and we liked them, and came back the next year and, developed like a little relationship with them, and through Facebook and stuff like that, just keeping up. And we knew we wanted to get him for the film. And, we just, when the time came to put him with Insomniac, I got the voiceover from him, and then with the Groundhog, we brought him in to shoot. Yeah, he's in LA now, but when we shot Groundhog, he was in New York, so it wasn't that far of a trip down for him.
Yeah, he's a very fun guy. Troy and I are in the upcoming Cool as Hell 2.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's very good.
That was a lot of fun. He put me at ease.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's a spoiler because I think there's pictures up. But I get my head eaten off by Krampus.
Nice,
which is always good fun. So Insomniac,
a lot of fun.
Yeah, they are. Insomniac was I really dug it too. That was very cool and great poster.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so, how did you write Insomniac?
Yeah, I wrote Insomniac. I wrote Insomniac years ago, and there was another filmmaker actor I was working with that was looking for something to really sink his teeth in an acting sense. And I brought that up to him, and he was interested. So I pulled it out and polished it up a little bit, sent it over. He liked it, and we trekked into making it.
So is there any inspiration for Insomniac? Like, do you suffer from insomnia?
Yeah, I have. I suffer from insomnia time to time. It's one of those things. I won't be able to sleep for a couple of weeks, and it's something that I feel everybody kind of has. As I talk to people, everybody kind of, it's insomnia. If any worry or anything's on your mind or something like that, just keeping you awake. And I feel everybody's got something that they're worried about or on their mind. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a very natural, I don't know what you'd want to call it, a symptom, I guess. And it's driven from that. And there's an element of a medical element to it, where the doctors he goes to doctors to help him out, and they don't really, they kind of use him more as a guinea pig. And that's based off of my kind of opinion of the medical field a little bit, where they're only human, and they don't know really everything's kind of trial and error. And, within trial and error, you have to, break a few eggs to make an omelet, I guess you could say. And he just happened to be one of those unfortunate eggs.
Yeah. Do you have any experience with some type of medication you were given that you had a bad experience with?
No, not
especially not that level. Yeah.
No, just hearing stories.
Just in general. Yeah.
Yeah. But I when you said about insomnia in general, I would agree with that, because over the last couple of years, when less stress in my life, I sleep much better. I don't have that problem anymore.
So you sleeping good?
Yes, I am.
Good man.
Yeah.
Good man.
I really like the waiting room scene in Insomniac. So some great little cameos. And
Yeah, we got Billy Coyne in there, KDP and stuff. We got Sabrina Dennison in the film, playing the nurse. She was in Alejandro Jodorowsky, Santa Sangre.
Oh, sweet.
She played Alma. Yeah, it was that was a fun thing. It's always fun when you get to work with people that like you. You kind of grew up watching this stuff.
Yeah. So, is it hard to when you make like a short film to have a story arc that can play out within 20 minutes or half? Well, it's kind of a long movie for a short film.
Yeah. I came to realize Insomniac, I think, is 36 minutes long, and it was definitely a little too long for your typical nowadays. Your short films are like 5 to 15 type deal, quick, get them in and out type deal. And yeah, we overshot, I think, a little bit with the time on that. And I like it. I like the pacing of it and such. It's just kind of difficult to fit in, your typical, like your festivals and such are usually looking for shorter, shorter things. It's not quite a feature, so but it's not, it's not short either.
Yeah. Two things I was going to mention. I think it wouldn't work as well if it was cut down, because then the pacing wouldn't be the same. So you really wouldn't feel for the guy having insomnia, I think, as much if it was shorter.
Yeah.
And about time wise there, where does Insomniac or a movie that length, where does it play then? Like if it's not going to fit maybe in a short film festival, or does it work? Do you put something like that on DVD and put like extras on there? Like where does it get seen?
We were lucky, and it played like a good chunk of festivals, which we were lucky with. We got a couple awards, which was nice. It was pretty well received.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Huh?
Oh, that's good to hear. That's
yeah. I was very happy to hear it. But yeah, it's gonna get a DVD release. We're gonna probably release it ourselves. But yeah, it's tricky with festivals, because usually they have your short film sections where they want 20 minutes and under type deal, or the other category is like the 45 plus for features and stuff, and it kind of fell in the middle, which was a little difficult, I think, with submitting it to festivals. But there was a good amount of festivals out there that had a good middle ground where it could play.
I personally like a short about that length. And Groundhog's not. It's like an hour or so, right? I think. And
right, yeah. I think it's almost an hour exactly.
Yeah, because sometimes movies are clearly too long, and it's like padded out, so it's 90 minutes. And then sometimes I think a short can also be too short, and you can't really tell any type of story arc or character arc in that. So I personally kind of like the half hour, 45-minute kind of length.
Yeah, me too. I'm happy with it, and I'm very happy with the time it is and stuff. Just from a festival, looking at it through the eyes of maybe someone that was at a festival looking into it, I could understand the problem with the length. But I mean, yeah, like you said, I think that it's I think it works for what it is type deal. And yeah, I agree, man. I watch movies where if it was 20 minutes shorter or whatever, it would have been really good, but it really drags on and it really kills the film. You gotta cut it's art. So there really shouldn't be a time limit on it. It should just be whatever feels right for the film.
Yeah. But whatever it is to tell the story, whatever works.
Yeah, there's certain molds if you want it to be within the film system and do the festivals and stuff, you got to kind of fit certain molds for it. But yeah, outside of the festival thing, I think everybody is I've gotten a lot of good feedback on it with the length and stuff isn't too much. But
now, do you run festivals, or are you part of? Because I've seen you put up about the upcoming HoRRoRWEEN show, and I think last week there's a festival.
Yeah, this is the first year that we last week we did the Undo Divergent Film Awards, which is with a friend of mine, buddy composer, Andre Fernandez, who composed Insomniac. And So that was the first year. We're getting into that because it's fun. It's good to see all the different films and stuff and be able to showcase them. The HoRRoRWEEN thing, it's more that we started that last year, and it was mainly a Boombastic Films thing where we did we did Insomniac and Groundhog with some segments, because we've been doing some UK segments with Tony Newton, Body Bag Films and stuff, where they do like the To Die For and the 60 Seconds to Die and the grindsploitation type films. So we put them in between. But the HoRRoRWEEN thing, something we want to try and do every year on Halloween night. It's kind of for the people that, you're older now, and Halloween's just kind of gotten lame when you're older. And I want to kind of bring it back to that cool feeling of, people that don't have kids or whatever, they're not out there trick-or-treating. They can still come in. We give them a bag of candy and some treats and some like prizes and stuff, and like-minded people, and we play a bunch of like indie horror films, and it's just a fun experience.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. I might have to make it this year.
Yeah, I was just going to say that does sound like a good time.
We're trying to keep Halloween alive for the older people. Yeah.
Before you started doing that, did you do anything for Halloween?
No, not really. I mean, in my teen years, I'd go, like, if there was the weekend, you go to the weekend party, like the weekend before Halloween, you know what I mean? But other than that, as you get older, friends have kids, they disappear from circles and stuff, and you eventually just find yourself at home watching horror movies on like the AMC channel, or like watching a DVD or something, and that's what Halloween's become, just like another day of the week, you know what I mean? So it was trying to, kind of rebuild a little happiness around that time.
Yeah.
When we were younger, it was a lot of fun,
Yeah, and like it is cool to watch horror movies on your computer or your TV, whatever, but it's not the same as watching with a group of people. Yeah,
it's fun, it's you get the environment of, everybody being laughing or being scared, or, seeing a big gore moment where they all, get a chuckle and like that, an ew feeling of seeing this stuff. It's always better to see something in a theater within a group, you know what I mean? Because it adds to it.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like the last few years, maybe 5 years or so, that short films have like become a lot more popular. Do you think that's because of the festivals?
I think it's a little bit of both. That it's a little bit of the festival thing, because everybody kind of wants, recognition for their work, rightfully so. And I think there's just there's like an attention span that I don't really think's there anymore. So like people are more apt to see, rather watch like a 5-minute thing and then move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? But getting, telling a little story within 5 minutes is like these people that'll do like the minute film festival ones is weird. It's just like, half a scene type deal. You know what I mean? But if they can do it, more power to them.
Sure. I think I might be out of the age range for that kind of stuff. Like even when I watched the ABCs of Death, like a couple of them I dug, but they're just too short for me. It's like they're kind of neat, but
they're fun flash. You know what I mean? Like people want to get kind of caught up in a story and taken away from like whatever is going on in their life or whatever, and they just want to kind of sink into something. And like, I mean, I don't have anything against those short films, those short films. I just don't think you can really get into them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the time you start to feel it out, they're over. So
right. That was interesting, because I had a conversation with somebody. I think they were in their early 20s Sunday when I was doing a little movie thing, and they were talking about podcasts, because they found out I did the podcast, and he was saying like you should never have a podcast over 15 minutes, I think. And he tries to cut them down to like 40 seconds to 60 seconds so they can play them on Instagram. And I was just trying to wrap my head around that. Like, I don't know how you could, what would even be the point of doing like a 45-second podcast? And he was showing them on his phone, and it wasn't even conversations. It was like the sound bites, clipped out. And I was just like, I mean, if someone likes that, I guess that's cool. But it didn't really register with me. I didn't get it.
I don't understand that whole thing. Like when I think of a podcast, I think of something lengthy that it's almost like you're sitting down with a friend and you're listening to your friend, almost go back and forth with opinions and stuff.
Right, exactly.
But I think it goes back to that attention span thing, which is unfortunate. You know what I mean? But
if it's whittled down to that point, though, that's that doesn't bode well for the future.
No,
pretty soon it'll just be a logo. Pretty soon it'll just be like a picture, and that'll be it.
Yep, I'll flash you a picture, you flash me one, and then we just walk on.
Yeah,
exactly.
the Boomerang app, where it just kind of moves a little bit, like a little GIF.
It could be just because it's the easiest thing to do too. Where like if you're only talking for like 5 minutes and that's bad, it's like you don't even really have to do anything. You just say, "Well, I like this movie. It was good." And I didn't like this movie. It was bad. And then that's the end of it. I mean,
yeah, that sounds thrilling. But you mentioned Tony Newton, who's in England, and a lot of times when I have people on, from Boston area, they've all worked with him. So I always find it weird. Well, I don't know, weird, but it's interesting that someone in England works a lot with people in the Boston area. Like, how did he get involved with everybody?
I think that he got involved with everybody like through Facebook and just community, and like, because the Facebook is really, the social media is like a big advantage for, independent, low budget filmmakers, where they can connect with people like overseas like that. And I think it's just a matter of, being on like a message board or like a horror page, and you just see, there's people sharing their work and stuff. And they say, well, I like this. Like I got in contact with him through doing the first thing I did with Tony. I'm pretty sure it was an interview. I got interviewed for a documentary he was doing about VHS, and I think I met him through like a VHS type of page where like people would put up the rare VHS that they own and stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, I've done like 5 or 6 things with him so far. Tony's a good dude. But yeah, I think it was like that. And I think it's just once, with the big groups of people that kind of go to it, I think once a couple people start showing up on these things, I think other people get interested, because the overseas aspect is like very cool. You know what I mean? Where you can get your work shown in a whole different country. And that's, very tempting to any filmmaker, because you're making these to be seen. So like they want everybody to see them. And then there's perfect situations where people that have put out movies that never really found a home or found like a loving fan base within the States have found it elsewhere. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And I was at Fright Fest in London, and there's a huge horror community there. There's a guy there who had a big tattoo Fright Fest on his arm. But the place was just packed with horror movie fans. It was very cool to see, because I just didn't realize, there was such a big love of horror movies, and especially like kind of like underground or independent horror movies.
Yeah, I think the horror movies have the most loyal fans. You know what I mean? Like you don't really see too many people tatted up with like John Candy tattoos, even though they should. And you know what I mean? But like, there's not dramatic convention. You got your comic book conventions and stuff, but that's more of like, different. The conventions have blown up in the last like 10 years.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really become something. I remember there used to be like 3 in the U.S. like maybe like 15, 20 years ago, and now like every city almost has like 1 or 2 going on, you know what I mean? And they've become like big business, where like you go to a convention now and it's like horrendous. Like I remember going Rock and Shock will say, like I remember going to Rock and Shock when it first started, and you could go up and you could meet somebody and you get a picture with them and talk to them and get an autograph for like $10-15. Nowadays it's like you need to pay them like $50 just to shake their hand, and it's like it's been very exploited, which is kind of sad. But like it's just become a business, you know what I mean? Whenever people smell money, it's over.
Yeah, because we started doing the conventions not that long ago. I think 2011 was our first one, doing them with the show. And
I think you're right.
And just over that short period of time, it's really changed a lot. Where I see, like you said, people like charging. There was even, I think they stopped doing it because like there was a lot of people were against it. But I remember there was some people from The Walking Dead who were charging $10 just to go up to the table and meet them.
And they were like background, weren't they?
Yeah, it wasn't even like top characters or anything.
I remember when I met Kane Hodder for the first time, I paid $5 for an autograph. Yeah. That makes me feel like I'm 80 years old or something in convention years. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. But like, and he's still pretty reasonable. But yeah, you'll see people that are like I went to the Rhode Island Comic-Con recently, and you couldn't. I remember the Jason Momoa dude from like Aquaman was like $80 to like. You couldn't even like go through his line to like shake his hand or be like, "Hey," you had to pay $80 to like just do that. It was like, like the guys they're making money. Like what's weird is like the appreciation of like fans have kind of dwindled a little bit because they I don't know if it's just because in the media and stuff that they're so like pampered, I guess you could say, or like love type deal where they feel that they can do it, but it's unfortunate because like the fans are the people that go see these movies, and like the reason why you're doing so successful is it's because of these people that go out to see your movies and buy your movies, and the ticket sales and the merchandise, even though they don't make anything off of merchandise, but like the people that go see your movies, you should do. Like Adam Green, for instance, is a really cool dude that if you he'll give you free autographs, and I think that's the way to do it. It's
more of a personal experience. That's what I always liked.
Yeah, and if you look at it that way, like he's giving the free autographs, but then you're more likely than to go buy Adam Green stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Like if you're somewhere at a convention and you take the time to talk to somebody and give them a free autograph, you made a fan for like ever. It'll be very difficult for you to really like fuck up in their eyes, so to speak. You know what I mean? And
it's true. You're right.
Yeah. Unlike if a dude pays $80 for your autograph, and then your next movie's not as good, they're going to be one of those people trashing it like hard online. And rightfully so, because they paid there's a lot of people that don't exactly make a lot of money. I know people that save up all year and will drop thousands of dollars at a convention, and it's like it's to support the people that they love, and it doesn't look like they're getting the love back sometimes.
Yeah, and then there's a guy like Sid Haig. He even came out and said he's never going to raise his prices. It's like $10 for an autograph and maybe $20 for a signature on his own stuff. I think it might be cheaper if he signs your thing, and I always think that's really cool. Him to do. Yeah.
Sid Haig, I'll tell you a quick story about Sid Haig. Sid Haig's he's awesome dude. The first time I went to Rock and Shock, I went with a friend of mine that just got back from Iraq, and he had a Devil's Reject bootleg DVD, which I understand the bootleg situation. And he brought it to some other people that were there with the film, and like they gave him kind of a hard time about him having that bootleg, and he's like, this is the only version of the movie I could get when I was in Iraq, and people were still like not being cool with it. But when he got to Sid's table, he got up, he shook his hand, thanked him for his service, gave him the free autograph. Like that was like that's like special, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think Sid's just an old school dude where like he knows what it's like to try and create a relationship with the fans, where these other people, it comes so easy with Facebook and stuff that they they overlook the true like specialness or like interaction, like creating those relationships. Like they take it for granted in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he was I have a lot of history, Sid, because he was actually our first guest ever on the show, and it was actually through Rock and Shock, which is very cool. And he was Yeah, and it was I was a little because of the first guest, so the first guy we're going to interview on the show, and I'm like, oh man, it's Sid Haig, and to call him up, and he was just like at home watching TV, and he was just a regular, very cool guy.
I was still intimidated.
Yeah. I actually have that bootleg too of House of Thousand Corpses because at the time it wasn't even going to be known if it was ever going to come out, and so on eBay back in the day when it was kind of the Wild West eBay when you could buy pretty much anything on there, and I remember people were selling it, so I bought one. And then when the actual movie came out, I bought it too. But I'm curious. I should watch because I remember then when the real one came out, it being much different than my bootleg. I should go back and watch that one, see how different it is.
Yeah, it could be, but I believe like Warner Brothers owned it, and then like they shelved it, and Rob Zombie had to like buy it back, and then he sold it to Lionsgate, I think, to get the actual release.
Yeah. My friend works for Lionsgate. We were on the show, and when I was in LA once, he gave us a tour of Lionsgate. Well, he gave me a tour, and there was so much like Devil's Rejects and then House of a Thousand Corpses stuff there because that was like the movie that really helped them at that time because I guess they weren't doing so good. And so and there was like it was really cool because it was like old posters that they never used. They were just hanging up. But what was also cool about the place, he told me beforehand, you're going to see who worked here for since the beginning and the new people. Because like if you'd go in the office of someone who worked there for a long time, it would be just horror movie stuff and toys everywhere, and then like everyone else was just like a regular like office. So it was like
really? It was like the corporate really weird kind of place.
Yeah, so it was like there was really some really cool people left. They were like the last of the original employees, and then everyone else like were just straight up office people in cubicles.
Yeah, I think that's because because film's become it's always been a business, but more so now where the people that were making films back in the day were really making it because they loved making movies, and nowadays it's more people getting into it because they know that money can be made type deal.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like the switch over that happened with that. But
So what kind of movies did you watch growing up that like made you want to do this someday?
I was a lot of horror. I'm a big horror movie fan. A lot of like 90s action movies. When we'd go to the rental store, it'd be a lot of. I wasn't really allowed to get horror movies when I was younger, which is probably why it pushed me closer to them. You had that aspect of it, but yeah, a lot of like Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and stuff. Schwarzenegger. I liked kids movies for a while too. I was big into like the Ernest films. I even liked animated Disney movies for a while. Willy Wonka.
Yeah, I like them too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She's coming. I love Willy Wonka, man. That's one of probably my top 10. Amazing. My top 10 movies.
Yeah, and it's weird because like when you're a kid, you just like love it, and then I still love it now, but you see it much different. Like, man, this is a really weird movie. Like Willy Wonka is really kind of creepy in a way, and this is. I think I see it in totally different eyes, whatever age you are watching it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it holds up so well, too, because you can be a kid or an adult and still get something out of it.
In a way, though, it doesn't anymore, because, like, we took our nephews to go see the original one, and they were bored to death. After about, like, 40 minutes in, they were like, yeah, we've had enough of this movie. Yeah. And we were fascinated. We were like, oh, my God, how can you not like this movie? They were like, nah, it's kind of dull. I was shocked.
It moves too slow, I think, for like a younger generation because everything's so fast paced now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And CGI effects are like crazy and stuff. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, the people that can appreciate film can always go back and look at stuff like that. And it's unfortunate we're getting old. So it's like all the movies that we watched when we were younger, they look at them now and they're like, this is like dull because it's not fast paced and it's not,
no explosions and things.
Yeah, no explosions and stuff. And they I mean, that's part of the 15-minute generation where they're kind of just commercials, you know what I mean? They'd rather watch a bunch of like real quick things on YouTube because it's more accessible to them, I guess. But
I've noticed just in the last couple of years, because like a lot of people I know from my, I'm 42, and like like really anti CG. And then I've noticed that there are a lot of people who really love, or not necessarily love it, but they're into the CG. And I notice they're mostly like people in their early 20s. So then it makes me think, well, they grew up with that. So I guess you look at it differently. Like for me, like even bad like practical effects has a fun to it. There's like because I grew up with that kind of stuff. And then like bad CG to me is just bad. It's like not enjoyable. But then I guess if you grew up with that, to you that's kind of like the cool thing. I don't know. It's I guess it's not really right or wrong, but I have noticed that there are. I used to think no one was into CG, but I'm wrong there. There are people who dig it.
Yeah, there was a weird era like in the early 2000s when they didn't quite master CG, so it did look like shit. But like nowadays everything's like crisp and like really good. But yeah, I of course love the older stuff. Like you take a movie like John Carpenter's The Thing, and the effects in that movie are like holy shit. You know what I mean? Like wow. And I don't think they could even do that justice with CGI nowadays. You know what I mean? But you have a lot of super talented makeup people that unfortunately are dying out because of computers. But like. Yeah, and my stance on CGI is like I think that you can partner them together pretty well, where you should have like a practical effect, but you can still put a little CG in there with it to kind of enhance it. But I definitely like the I don't think they'll ever get over and ever beat that physical feel where like it just looks, CGI has a certain look to it.
I think the weight's not there. I think a lot of problem is like the weight's not there. Like you could, and so even if you don't like think that through, I think like your eye can tell that there's just in your brain like there's just not something right.
Yeah,
kind of takes you out of it.
Yeah, unless you get the crazy like Jurassic Park kind of.
Yeah, and see a lot of that was practical stuff, but it's like a combination of the two.
Yeah, like the Stan Winston dinosaurs in the first Jurassic Park are like mind blowing. You know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah.
I remember there was a picture floating around where like somebody thought that they like really like cloned dinosaurs for like the making of that movie, and it just goes to show how great those makeup effects artists were. You know what I mean? The people who built that stuff. It's a dying art. You know what I mean? But then you go back and you look at like the stop motion of like that. Back in the day. And how like mind blowing that was to people, and it still is pretty mind blowing. But like if you were to show like King Kong or something to like to like a 7-year-old kid, he'd be like, turn this off. You know what I mean?
But
like, very true.
Yeah.
It's just I think it's what people are. What people grow up with is what's warm to them, and like they'll always have a special place in their heart because it's like music too, where like. Everybody's generation of music is better than the next generation. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. I think it's something people just own it. It becomes a part of them. So they defend it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And all previous generations usually hate like the current generation's music.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. But yeah, I remember going to see Jurassic Park when it came out, and just like, it really was like awe-inspiring, just seeing the dinosaurs walking around. It was really, it was pretty wild. And now you don't get that feeling.
Yeah, you were the masters of their crafts at the time. The Jurassic Park movies are still fun. You know what I mean? But I think they're all CGI nowadays.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same feeling. I guess after you do so many, it would be hard to have the same feeling anyway. Yeah, we've all seen seen the dinosaur now.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah. So are you ever gonna do like a 90s style action movie?
A 90s style action movie? Yeah. I'm not opposed to it. There's nothing in the plans now, but I would if the opportunity came up, I'd be all about it. I support that.
Good. Have you seen the new Terminator? I mean the new Predator.
I haven't seen the new Predator. The trailer
it may inspire you. Well, that's what's funny. There's two separate trailers, and I wasn't aware of it until we went and saw the movie. there's the one you see on TV. Then there's an R-rated trailer that they showed at the movies. Yeah. And it's so much better. And it's more of what the movie's about. Like, when Neil and I saw it, it was just so much better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I really went in thinking I was going to hate it. And I honestly had a really good time. I thought it was fun. It was like crazy violent. It was way more violent than I expected it to be. And I just really enjoyed it. I was kind of surprised how many people hate it, but maybe because my expectations were so low. But I dug it, had a good time.
That the low expectations does help. I do plan on seeing it though, because I never really take other people's opinions on movies because it goes back. Everybody has a different outlook on everything.
Yeah.
But I'll check it out eventually. It's got Shane Black and Fred Dekker. The return of Fred Dekker, which was fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very cool.
I was hoping it'd be a little bit more of a success for that sense to maybe see more of his stuff, but
yeah, because I just saw the documentary Wolfman's Got Nards about Monster Squad. And like everyone else in the movie, really, it's kind of like a love affair with the movie, but his stuff was like really poignant because it's like he says like I think it's my best movie, but it also like ruined my career because didn't make money and stuff. And so I was like the same way, like, oh man, I hope this is a success just for that. It'd be cool like him to make make some successful stuff. But that's probably the best part of the documentary though, because it is like it's real, and you kind of see everybody else like they didn't really care that the movie didn't do very well because they still had fun, but you could tell that affected him a lot that the movie didn't do very well.
They'll probably do better with the release on Blu-ray because then they could give it like an unrated cut, which I think that's what a lot of people want. They want like a bunch of gore and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when they redid the Rambo movie, 4 years ago, whatever it was, when they made that new Rambo movie, I think that was like the fact that movie had so much gore in it was like what helped make that movie so good. You know what I mean? Where he's cutting people in half with machine guns and stuff, and people were exploding from getting shot. Mm-hmm. It's fun though because like that whole like super ultra violent films, like I don't know if we'll be seeing too many of them anymore, just with the way kind of things have kind of softened up a little bit, but they're fun, and they're needed and they're a good release. It's all about like movies are a release, they're you go see a movie and you can watch somebody tear somebody in half in a movie, so then you don't really want to do it in real life type deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But this Predator was a lot gorier than I expected it to be. There was a lot of crazy violence, which I didn't think there would be from the trailer.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it was definitely different than I expected. I dug it a lot. So House Across the Street, which I didn't realize you were part of, and a few years ago when it came out, we did an interview on the red carpet with the director, and we were at the premiere, and I probably saw you there, but I didn't know who you were.
It's true.
So how did you get involved in that? Because it's a pretty big movie and it was a cool movie.
Yeah,
too.
I got involved with that through the director Arthur Lunn. I was making movies like on my own for a little bit, and when I really started to like branch out in the community to kind of look into other films, I found maybe Craigslist or something like that of a film looking for extras for a movie he did called Conned, which is a really fun film. And I went on that and I met him and I was really gung-ho. He had a good operation going. I did some background on it. I ended up doing some crew. And then from there, I just said, hey, on the next project, let me know what you're doing. I'd love to work on it. And, maybe you take a step up a little further and it'll be more help. And from that point, we did a little web series thing, and then we did Mr. Sharna's Saw, and then when the time came to make that, I was almost like Arthur's right-hand man a little bit. So I came into House Across the Street. I was line producer and second AD. I did special effects on it, locations, like the whole thing. Wore a bunch of hats on it, and just went into that, and that was cool. That was like probably the biggest film that I've worked on in a bigger way like that, because we had like the We had Eric Roberts in it, and Ethan Embry, and Courtney Gaines, the late Alex Rocco, who he was really, Alex Rocco was really a sweet guy. Because usually when you're on set, everybody's kind of really friendly. But Alex Rocco was like grandfatherly friendly, where like he could pull you aside and tell you a cool story or something, or just like talk about whatever. Where, you know, you sometimes you'll get that feel like people are just being nice for the sake of work, you know what I mean? But like he was a lot more like open and welcoming, I should say, you know, in that situation. But yeah, I just kind of getting in with Arthur and climbing the ranks with him, and you know, that's kind of the best thing you can do is you find people that are like-minded and want to do things. And Arthur's got a good head on his shoulders, and he finds, you know, budgets that he needs to make what he wants to make, and he's got a real like take no prisoners attitude, and he always kind of pushes people to get the best out of them, and that's kind of who you want to be around. And we just now the time came to make that movie, you know, I came on board. We had a lot of other cool people on that working, and it was that was a fun film to do.
Yeah. So, have you had any like experiences making any of the movies that really stand out to you, either or bad or good?
I mean, whenever you make a movie and you get to play it in front of an audience is usually a good experience. But like, you know, I've always really enjoyed like being able to work with like the people that you kind of grow up as a fan of, which we got to do with that. I did a movie called Alice D, The Haunting of Alice D, where we got to bring in Kane Hodder, which being a big horror fan was like awesome, because, you know, I love, you know, raised on like the Friday the 13th movies, like, because those are the Friday the 13th movies were movies that you could watch on like USA would always do like marathons back in the day. So like, even if you couldn't go to the store to rent them or whatever, like you could still, they'd be edited down, but you could still kind of watch them, you know what I mean? And that was always fun. So that was cool. And like, I remember, you know, just from that set, there's a good story where like at the end of the shoot, we all had some drinks and stuff. We were renting a mansion to shoot the film in, and we all had some drinks. And it's funny because he's an ICP fan, and back in my younger days, I was more of an ICP fan. But like, I remember drinking and like singing some songs with him, and then like he told us all this story about like how he got burnt. Like the whole story was like the stunt that like got him. There's a documentary out now, To Hell and Back, which I haven't yet to see, but I'm sure it's like fantastic. And it was really cool to have that like special moment with him where like you could see how like deeply impacted he was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, his book's great, and the chapters about the burn, and then like the comeback for, you know, the healing of it. It's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, I got the book. It's intense, you know what I mean? Yeah. He had to like fight. He had to fight and work pretty hard just to get back to where he was, because it was pretty bad, you know, when it happened. And it's one of those stories that kind of give you, you know, a personal hope, one of those overcome things where you can see, well, he overcame this, and after that, like he became what he's known for now and stuff. And it's always good to be able to see somebody put in a terrible situation and how they overcome that, and you can find inspiration in it, you know what I mean? Because then you kind of look at your situation and be like, well, I got less to overcome, and he had more, and he did it, and it's just, you know what I mean?
I remember the one, I don't remember what year it was, but it was one of the years he was at Rock and Shock, and there was a lot of burn victims there, because like they really look up to him, you know, as being open about it. Because that was really powerful in the book too, where he like would really cover up his burns until he saw someone, like was a girl who was, you know, I think their face was burnt, and like he was kind of staring at her, and like her boyfriend's like, hey, what are you doing? But it was just like it was like the epiphany where he's like, you know, I don't have to be ashamed of, you know, or embarrassed by these burns, and he was open about it.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Like that transcends film. It's like the most important thing anybody can do in their life is like change somebody else's life for the better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, you know what I mean? And like, it always gives me goosebumps to kind of think of his story, because like he does, and he's very cool with the people that went through that. And, you know, people that have been through really dark shit, like they need somebody to be able to relate to, you know what I mean? And they need like something to look up to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As we all do. And it's real. I always found like, it always really, you know, stuck with me, that situation with him being, you know, so cool like that. And he's a dude who understands, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting enough, when I started doing the horror movie conventions and being around like, horror movie fans and stuff, I found that like the horror community is like the most like accepting. Like you think maybe they're like a bunch of crazy people or so, but it's like everyone has the same, you know, a common love. And like, it doesn't matter if you're a crazy guy with all these tattoos or you just dress like a normal person, whatever. Everyone's very accepting because you all, you know, dig the same thing.
Yeah, just because you like to watch people getting their heads cut off doesn't mean you're cutting off heads. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like it's a therapeutic. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where, you know, a good movie should be something where you can pull somebody out of, like, I always, the thing that I always really loved about film is the fact that you could be having a really bad day, no matter what the circumstances, and you could put on a movie and you can get lost in that movie and forget about whatever's going on. Mm-hmm. And that's the most powerful thing about film, I think. And, like the horror audience, like I said before, like there's no audience like the horror audience, where they're so supportive of each other, and it's like a tight knit family. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where they gather once a year or whenever they can, and everybody's on the same page, because they all have a love for something that in your everyday regular life, like the dude that you work with doesn't understand how you could, you know, love like Michael Myers, or even the comedian Mike Myers, I guess. And
right.
But like, you know, they don't.
Well, I can't understand that.
Yeah. But they don't understand like how you could find a peace in like something violent. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you're now surrounded by people that understand it, and it's almost like you're on the same wavelength. But yeah, like the conventions are like really great, and I think they're bringing people together. You know, that's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. And I just wish they would charge so much for autographs.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what I mean? I'm down with.
Yeah, I've been starting with the festivals, and I've really been just really this year. Boston Underground Film Festival's the first one I did, and I've really been having a good time. That's a similar idea. It's a lot of people just coming together to watch, not necessarily horror movies, kind of like what they call genre movies, something weird, and it's a good time.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like I don't think, like I was trying to say, but I don't think I said it right before. Is like you got usually certain hobbies or interests that you would almost be outcasted from like a regular group for. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Being a film nerd or being a big horror fan, like almost would be looked down upon a little bit. But like when you're with those people, it's all family. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing. They can all relate and they all share the same interests. And at the end of the day, like it's all about finding people that you get along with and like share interests, and it just makes life easier. And that's what everybody wants, is like an easy, smooth life that's happy. And when you find other people that love the same thing you do, that you're on the right path.
Mm-hmm. As I grew up, big horror movie fan, professional wrestling fan, and D&D player. So it was a lot of stuff that other people weren't necessarily like, hey, that's really cool.
Right. But then you go into, you know, a convention and it's embraced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody wants to belong. You know, and that's why there's so many people that go to see like the Red Sox and all these other things, where it's just like people just want to belong to something. You know, they want to feel like they're not alone. They share something with somebody else, a human contact, and everybody has their own little thing. You know what I mean? And horror, I from all the groups that I've seen, you know, you go to a Red Sox game and see like 20 fist fights over something stupid, but you never see fighting at a horror convention, which is funny.
That's true.
Yeah, that's I don't think I've ever seen a fight.
It's funny that like they would they would look at a horror fan like someone that would kill somebody, but like you go to another like a sporting event where people are getting beaten up in the parking lot or in the stands and stuff, and it's like you never see that at a horror convention. Everybody's cool, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
True.
I know we mentioned B documentary earlier, but let's talk a little bit more about it because it was cool because I do a lot of people in it from meeting them around. And so, and Nick Charles did a really good job, I think. So when you're a producer on that, what does a producer mean for people who might not know what a producer does?
Producer just means, setting up different interviews with some of the different people that we're interviewing and, making sure that everything kind of falls in place. And, me and Nick both produced it. And we both brought in certain people that, were interviewed and just kind of overseeing a little bit. But yeah, Nick Charles, who directed it, he did one before that, so he didn't really need any overseeing. But it was I've seen the first movie, and I thought it was really cool, and I was kind of wanting to branch into that documentary type feel with filmmakers because being from Massachusetts, it's not New York, it's not Hollywood, and you're in Hollywood, you got you're lucky enough that you could bump into like Quentin Tarantino at the coffee shop or something like that, you know what I mean? Or bump into like a Wes Craven, rest in peace, at like, at a restaurant, and you can get a few words with them. Where out here, you can't, you're not going to bump into anybody unless it's at a convention or something. So that's what really interested me about that idea, is that we could sit down with these different filmmakers and actors and stuff and, talk shop, you know what I mean? And get some advice and that was the fun part about B documentary.
Yeah, I really didn't even know there was like so many filmmakers around Boston until actually I think when I had Paul McElharney on the show, and then he started inviting me to some things, and I start then you start meeting other people, and then it's like, wow, there's a lot of people out there doing things, and it's cool how everyone, for the most part, kind of works together. There'll be like someone who, like a Paul who would make his own movies, and he'd be an actor, and in a lot of other people's movies, and I kind of like that aspect of it too. That everyone, has different roles, and they actually like helping each other out.
Yeah, it's a community thing. I think that independent filmmakers is just like you're, like a horror fan, where you have a love for a specialized type thing that not a lot of people get down with, and when you do find those people that do it, and it's fun. Everybody makes movies because they want to make movies. So like when you get to meet those other people that do it, then you get to go on and help them out, and it's a supportive thing. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's good. Like the support is what keeps the whole spirit of it alive, because nobody really has the money to compete with the bigger films and stuff. So when you set out to make a movie, like you need to have those people that'll come out and dedicate their time to your project and stuff and support it. When you're releasing it, they'll be sharing it for you, and then showing up to your screenings and, helping you get the word out there. Like it's a very important thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I will mention us. I don't know if you know Sam Vanivray, but I just did a small part in his new movie coming out, Bad Cop Art. Bad Art Cops. I'm sorry, which is an amazing title and movie. Yeah. So I just want to give him a shout out because he was a cool guy and invited me to be in the movie. So he has an eye for talent. I was just hoping I didn't.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm keeping in. When that comes out, I want to go check it out. I like the picture with you; it's very nice, and I like the Facebook page. I'm doing my part, supporting.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I get to see guns, so it was very exciting. So, what are you working on currently?
Currently, I'm working on my next feature film. It's like a horror movie, it's more of a ghost story than your blood and guts type horror movie. It's based off of the Hockomock Swamp, which is located in the Bridgewater Triangle, which is an area over by my neck of the woods. That's haunted. Dare I say haunted? And it focuses on a group of friends that they're going on one last hurrah together, one last trip, and they end up in this forest that is, there's different folklore about certain things that have been seen there, and they kind of incorporate into the film without going too deep into it.
Very cool. So is that going to be a short or a feature?
No, a feature. There'll be a feature, hour and a half, maybe a little longer. I learned my lesson with Insomniac, where like if I do a short, I don't think I'll go middle of the road. I think at this point on, I'll probably just do like feature films and small things for like Tony or something.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, the length is different.
Yeah.
But what are some of the differences when you make a feature as opposed to a short that maybe you would? That's not obvious.
Yeah, I consider shorts they're fun, but they're like teasers and like you can get, depending on how long it's going to be. Like if it was a thing with Tony, it'd be something like quick and fun. You know what I mean? Something that like a horror fan would get a taste for and enjoy it, and hopefully look into other films that the filmmaker did. But with a feature film, it's a lot more work, obviously, because it's longer and stuff, and you need more locations and more cast and stuff. But those are the ones that you can get behind and really build with the characters and the story and stuff. So like it's you can really tell that story. People can get lost in them, like I said earlier. I'd really try and make films that people can kind of sink in and just watch and kind of go on a little bit of a journey with it. With this film, like I really, it's based in '93, so I'm trying to like bring childhood back a little bit for some people and get them relatable with their friends and stuff. And it's a movie kind of about friendship and such. But yeah, it's just, the more time you have to tell a film, the better, as long as you don't go too far. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because that attention span's a motherfucker.
Yeah. Do you think part of doing making shorts are to show people what you can do if you want to do a feature?
Yeah. I know people do that. They make a short and then they try and sell it around and pitch it around and say, well, if we had the money, we can make a bigger version of this. Which there's circumstances where that's worked out and stuff, but if you can show your style and stuff. Everybody, I think it's more of it's a different strokes, different folks type thing, where everybody's different, and like if some people are perfectly happy with just making 5-minute shorts, you know what I mean, and more power to them, and it's just that you got to kind of feel it out and see what stories you want to tell, and you figure out the story, and then you go from there on how long how long it's going to take to make it, and whether it's going to be a short or a feature. And I think it should all your length should be all based off of how long you need to tell the story. Yeah, like just being like, well, I want to make a 10-minute short. Like I think, and then going from there is kind of like, yeah, I mean, it works for some people, but I feel it's more of the story. You got to have like some heart in there. Not to say that 10-minute shorts don't have some heart, but like you just kind of, like I said, it's like an artistic thing. So you just kind of figure out what you want, the story you want to tell, and you lay it out and figure out, where you want to go with it, and then write it out and make it. And I don't think you should limit yourself with time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, when you were saying like you have to know a lot of different hats or different hats to what are some of the things that you would think people might not think of when they go into making movies that you think that people should know about?
Dealing with people is huge. I don't think people understand that. Like you need to be able to know how to handle people, because when you're on set, there's going to be different personalities. And you almost need to know how to play with every personality to a degree where like if somebody's upset, you got to be able to know how to calm them down. If somebody, if they're acting or something, and if they need, you got to be able to communicate with people, which is easier said than done sometimes because there's different personalities. And like if you're directing somebody and you want a certain emotion out of somebody, you've got to be able to tap into them to kind of how to get that across, you know what I mean? And I don't think a lot of people think about that element. I think that they just think, well, they're going to know what to do and it's written on the paper. So, that's that type deal. But to get like and there's actors that can pop on screen and just kind of do it. But I don't think, like certain people that are kind of just starting out, I don't think that they quite know themselves as actors yet to be able to do that. So like, and I think between an actor and a director is always a collaborative effort. Like it can't just be the director being like, this is how it is. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like do it this way. Because they're the actors and artists too. And they're going to want to get their art out there too. And it's a collaborative thing where they both got to mesh and really kind of create that character together. And I don't see a lot of that. Like, I don't see a lot of when people do, like, I don't see a lot of building between, actor and director. I think it's more of like what's written on the paper and just kind of, go for kind of, this is the feel that we're going for. And then there's that. But I think people should get a little more, into it, into the meat and bones of the whole thing. But it's difficult.
What's your favorite aspect of all the creative process?
My creative process is probably like the directing part of it because, it's the characters aren't done till the movie's over, and you'll create them kind of in the writing process. And then during the pre-production, you'll get on the same page with the actor where you kind of build with them. And then if you build it appropriately once on set, you can hopefully be on the same page. So if an actor is in that zone, the input that they can add can be more of like, well, I feel that the character would do this because of what we talked about. And that's when an actor gets to put input in like that, that's when you're going to get the best performance because then they're proud of what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, and then everybody can be proud. And when everybody's kind of proud of what they're building, then that's the way you get the best product. And I think in the real, when you're shooting it, that's the real molding of the scenes where, you can really like, you can tie it all together. Yeah. I'd say that my directing is the actual directing on set, because that's like the magic moment where like, that's when it happens. It's like you can write it and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, but when you're there on set, like that's what's going into the camera and that's what's going to be used. So that's kind of like the moment of truth time. You know what I mean?
I think that comes through in movies because I see a lot of screeners, obviously, for the show. And sometimes I'll watch something and it's like clearly they're just kind of going through the motions to make something, and it's not very interesting. But like if you see a movie, even if it's not great, let's say, but if it's clear that like they're having either a good time or like you can tell like they're really passionate about it, you can overlook a lot of like maybe negatives or because it's low budget and all these things, that comes through, and like you have a good time watching it, and like you kind of root for the people to do well within the movie. And I think that kind of stuff just comes through and makes something better. Even if people don't, even if you don't really get why it's why you're having a good time watching, I think it comes through.
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of films. If you're going for a more serious tone, everything would have to be more tightened up. But if you were going for like a comedic thing or like something that's more, like with Groundhog. When we did Groundhog, it was. Dave wrote a good script, but there was a lot of like improv that he allowed and stuff. And it's a fun movie. You know what I mean? It's not a movie that if you wanted to sit down and pick it apart, you probably could. But if you're going to sit down and just have fun with the film, you know what I mean? Like that's the type of film that is, you know what I mean? And in a sense of that, then yeah, like it's an atmosphere where, you know, the audience is going to have fun, like the people in the film. You can kind of tell the people making the film are having fun, you know what I mean?
I also want to get a shout out here to Melissa Potter, your co-host on Shock Treatment, and sharing the show. Yeah. That's very cool. How can people listen to Shock Treatment?
Shock Treatment is on 990WBOB.com. We record out of Rhode Island. We usually Tuesday nights from 9 to 10. It's off and on type deal. But we have, if you go on the website, we have past episodes. We're just kind of starting out. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 episodes on there. And we got a Facebook page as well, Shock Treatment with Mel and Maddie, that people can check out. And we usually put all our episodes up there.
Very cool. And I've known Melissa a while online. I don't think I've ever met her in person, but she seems very cool. How did you guys, how long have you guys worked together?
We've known each other for like a year and a half. We got a mutual friend of ours, Billy Coyne, special effects gentleman, introduced us. I think I met her. She was working with him at, he was doing Rock and Shock, I think, and she was like assisting him with that. And I met her there, and then we did a Halloween event that Bill was doing that he brought me on because I helped him do some makeup effects for, it was like a big, like, somebody was having like a party, Halloween themed party, and like they had some loot, so they were able to they have all their friends over, and it's like a big operation, big production where like we paint up people and send them through and then do dances and weird stuff. But she was also there as well. And that was the first time I really got to talk to her. And I expressed, you know, the idea of like how I always like wanted to kind of do like a podcast, but you know, I never really had the time to sit down and figure out the nuts and bolts to it and stuff. And she expressed that she wanted to do one too. And then I'd say like a couple months later after that, she hit me up and just said, hey, you know, I think we're going to move ahead and try and make this happen, and asked me if I still wanted to do it. And I said, absolutely. And we went into Shock Treatment. But yeah, Melissa's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. And so how can people follow you online?
Online, they can follow me on Boombastic Films on Facebook, or Mathew Fisher. They can hit me up on my direct page. We got a YouTube page at Boombastic Media. Yeah, that's pretty much I don't really we got a Twitter page, but I don't really get into Twitter that much.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I know I should use it, but I'm not a fan of the Twitter either.
Yeah, it's a weird system, but people love it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Instagram. I never got into Instagram either, but people love that.
Yeah, I don't know, all that stuff. Like, it doesn't seem like you can really communicate very well. You just kind of throw a picture up there. Doesn't seem it just doesn't interest me very much.
It's more for like the people that do the pictures of food and stuff, I think.
Yeah, which I do sometimes too, I guess. But
yeah, I like your food.
Yeah. All right, thanks very much. I should just get someone who listens to the show to. All right, we'll do that sometime. I'm always up. I'll be going to. I think I'm going to the Phantom Gourmet Food Festival Saturday, but I'm always up for any kind of foodie thing.
Cool.
Foodie and movies, and I'll go.
That's another show right there.
It is indeed. Yeah,
I like that, foodies and movies.
Yeah, we just sit around and eat and talk about movies. There we go.
I'm down with that. Anytime you guys want to do it, we'll do it.
All right, foodie and movies coming soon. It was very cool to have you here, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Oh man, I love that. Thank you guys very much.
Hey everybody, this is James Balsamo. Heads are gonna roll when you're listening to Without Your Head.